It was a chilly evening in downtown Los Angeles, the kind of night where shadows danced under flickering streetlights. Keanu Reeves, known for his roles in action films and his genuine kindness, found himself walking alone after a long day of filming. He appreciated the quiet moments, the anonymity they brought, allowing him to blend into the bustling city he loved. But tonight, something felt different. As he passed by an alley, the sounds of laughter and revving engines echoed behind him, drawing his attention. Curiosity piqued. He glanced back just in time to witness a group of leather-clad bikers surrounding a frail figure huddled against the wall. A homeless man, shivering in the cold. The laughter quickly morphed into jeers as one biker kicked the man's belongings, sending them scattering across the pavement. Keanu's heart raced. What would you do if you suddenly lost everything and had no one to turn to? The question flashed through his mind, amplifying the tension in the air. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Keanu hesitated, torn between his instinct to help and the palpable threat looming from the gang. His mind raced back to his own past, the loss he had faced, the moments he felt utterly alone. Memories of his mother's struggles and the kindness of strangers flooded back, igniting a spark of empathy within him. But the moment hung heavy in the air. The gang was emboldened, their laughter cutting through the night, while the homeless man cowered in fear. Keanu felt a surge of adrenaline. This was not just a fight for one man's dignity. It was a fight against the indifference that had seeped into society. He took a deep breath, preparing to confront the demons of his own past while stepping into the fray. Would he be able to make a difference, or would he too become just another silent observer? As he stepped closer, the sounds of the city faded away, replaced by the pounding of his heart. He could see the fear etched on the homeless man's face, and it fueled his resolve. No one should face this alone. With that thought, he took another step forward, determination igniting within him. Keanu's voice broke through the chaos. "Hey, leave him alone." The words rang out, clear and unwavering. The gang turned, surprise flickering across their faces. Keanu felt the weight of the moment, a crossroads where courage met fear. He stood tall, ready to fight not just for the homeless man, but for all those who had ever felt powerless. The lead biker, a hulking figure with a sneer, stepped toward him, sizing him up. "What's it to you, pretty boy?" he taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. Keanu's pulse quickened, but he held his ground. He remembered his mentor's words, "True strength lies in standing for what is right, regardless of the odds." "This isn't just about me," Keanu shouted back, his conviction growing. "This is about humanity." The gang's laughter faltered as the homeless man looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. In that instant, Keanu knew he had to act. He stepped closer, preparing himself for whatever was about to unfold. As the gang members exchanged glances, weighing their options, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Would they back down? Or would this confrontation escalate into something far more dangerous? Keanu stood firm, ready to face the storm, knowing that sometimes the smallest acts of bravery could spark a change in the world. As the tension in the alley mounted, Keanu's thoughts drifted back to his childhood, an upbringing marked by turmoil and resilience. He recalled the countless nights spent in a chaotic household, where his mother struggled with addiction and depression. Those early experiences shaped him into the man he was today, instilling in him a deep sense of empathy for those who felt invisible. In the midst of the current chaos, he remembered a specific moment from his past, standing in line at a soup kitchen with his mother. They were surrounded by people in desperate situations, all waiting for a warm meal and a moment of kindness. The looks on their faces, a mixture of hope and despair, haunted him even now. Keanu had felt a stirring within him then, a desire to be a force for good. He glanced at the homeless man in the alley, who now looked up at him with wide, hopeful eyes. In that moment, Keanu saw the reflection of his younger self, the boy who longed for help, who needed someone to stand up for him. What if he could do that now? His close friends often joked about Keanu being the nice guy of Hollywood, but he wore that title with pride. He believed that every small act of kindness could create ripples of change, and he had made it his mission to be that change. Friends like Sandra Bullock and David Leitch often encouraged his philanthropic efforts, reminding him of the power of empathy in a world that sometimes felt overwhelmingly harsh. But as he faced the bikers, the question nagged at him. Would his fame protect him, or would it make him a target? The gang's laughter echoed in his ears, taunting him as he fought the rising tide of doubt. "You don't know what you're messing with," the lead biker snarled, stepping closer. Keanu could smell the alcohol on his breath, mingling with the stale air of the alley. "And you don't know what you're missing," Keanu shot back, his voice steady, even as his heart raced. "This isn't about power. It's about respect for every human being." The homeless man shuffled closer to Keanu, clutching a tattered blanket to his chest, eyes filled with a mix of fear and admiration. For a brief moment, the world around them faded, and it was just the three of them. Keanu, the man who had been cast aside, and the gang that thrived on intimidation. Keanu's mind raced as he prepared for what might come next. He had seen many fights on film, had choreographed and rehearsed them countless times. But this was different. This was real life, and the stakes were higher than any script could convey. In that split second, he felt the weight of his past pressing down on him, a reminder of every struggle he had faced. He could not walk away. As the gang members huddled together, whispering amongst themselves, Keanu seized the opportunity. "You think this is funny? This man deserves dignity, just like anyone else," he said, projecting his voice as powerfully as he could. The lead biker hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Keanu sensed the shift, a crack in the facade of bravado that had characterized the gang's demeanor. Maybe, just maybe, his words were resonating. "What's it to you, huh?" one of the bikers challenged, crossing his arms defiantly. "It's about time someone stood up," Keanu replied, taking a step forward, drawing upon every ounce of courage he had. "We all have a responsibility to each other, no matter who we are." The atmosphere thickened with tension as the bikers exchanged glances, weighing their options. Keanu could feel the weight of the moment. This could either lead to a resolution or an all-out brawl. But deep down, he knew he had to fight. For the homeless man, for his own past, and for a future where compassion triumphed over cruelty. The shadows of his childhood had forged a fierce determination within him, and he was ready to face whatever came next. The alley felt suffocating as the bikers shifted uneasily, the air thick with anticipation. Keanu stood his ground, heart pounding in his chest. He could see the tension building in the gang members. Their bravado was wavering, and he knew this was his chance to make a difference. "You think you can just come in here and play the hero?" The lead biker spat, stepping closer, his eyes narrowed into slits. "You don't know what we're capable of." Keanu's stomach twisted, but he refused to back down. "I know enough," he replied, his voice unwavering. "I know that what you're doing is wrong, and I won't stand by while you bully someone who can't fight back." The homeless man shifted nervously behind him, and Keanu could feel the weight of his gaze. It was a mix of fear and hope, an unspoken plea for help that fueled Keanu's resolve. One of the bikers, a smaller man with tattoos crawling up his arms, looked uncertain. "Maybe we should just leave it," he muttered, glancing at the lead biker. "It's not worth it." But the lead biker wasn't having it. "You're just going to let this guy talk to us like that? You want to be a weakling?" His voice dripped with disdain, and the group seemed to rally around him, bolstering their resolve against Keanu. In that moment, Keanu felt the tension in the air thicken like fog. He had to do something, quickly. "I get it. You want to feel powerful, to assert yourselves," he called out, shifting his tone. "But picking on someone who's down doesn't make you tough. It just makes you small." The bikers froze. For a heartbeat, the alley was silent, the weight of Keanu's words hanging in the air. He could see the flicker of uncertainty in the smaller biker's eyes, a crack in the tough exterior. Keanu pressed on, seizing the moment. Real strength comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. "What do you want your legacy to be? Fear or respect?" The lead biker sneered, but his bravado wavered. Keanu's heart raced. He was inching closer to breaking through. The homeless man looked at Keanu, eyes wide with hope, as if he could feel the shift. "You're in over your head, pretty boy," the lead biker growled, stepping even closer, fists clenching. "You think you can take us all on?" "It's not about me," Keanu said, trying to maintain focus. "It's about standing for what's right. You can choose to walk away right now. No one has to get hurt." The gang members exchanged uneasy glances. It was a precarious balance, a moment where fear and hesitation danced together. Keanu could feel the energy in the air shifting. Something was changing. Just then, the homeless man spoke up, his voice shaky but determined. "I don't want trouble. Just leave me alone." His words hung in the air, an unexpected plea that resonated with everyone present. The lead biker hesitated, his expression faltering. "You think we're scared of you?" he barked, though the fire in his voice was diminishing. "I don't want you to be scared," Keanu replied, his heart racing with each passing moment. "I want you to realize there's more to life than this, more than fear and violence." Suddenly, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Keanu felt a rush of urgency. This was it. He needed to act before the bikers made their move. "You have a choice," Keanu urged, stepping closer to the lead biker. "You can walk away from this and choose a different path. It's never too late." The bikers shifted uneasily, glancing at each other as if weighing their options. The sirens were getting closer, and Keanu could see the realization wash over the smaller biker. "Maybe he's right," he muttered, almost to himself. But the lead biker, sensing the tide turning, raised his voice. "We don't take orders from you." His defiance was loud, but Keanu could see the cracks beginning to form in their facade. "You can fight me, or you can leave," Keanu said, his voice steady and firm. "But violence won't win you respect. It will only lead to regret." The moment hung in the air, a fragile balance between conflict and resolution. Keanu's heart raced as he prepared for whatever came next, knowing that he had to stay strong for the man behind him and for everyone who had ever felt powerless. With a final glance at the homeless man, who was now looking at him with admiration, Keanu felt a surge of hope. "Stand with me," he said quietly, knowing that this moment was bigger than them both. As the sirens echoed closer, the lead biker's resolve began to falter. The gang's power, built on fear and intimidation, was being challenged in a way they had not anticipated. Would they choose to walk away, or would they escalate the confrontation? Keanu held his breath, hoping that compassion could prevail over chaos. The tension in the alley was palpable as the sirens grew closer, their wailing a harbinger of change. Keanu's heart raced as he faced the gang, each moment feeling like an eternity. He could sense the shifting dynamics, the uncertainty playing out in the eyes of the bikers. "You don't want this," he urged, his voice steady. "You think you're invincible, but look around. What have you really accomplished here? Nothing but fear." The lead biker, visibly torn, hesitated. Behind him, the smaller biker looked increasingly uneasy, glancing back and forth between his leader and the homeless man. Keanu saw an opportunity and pressed on. "You have the chance to be more than just a name in a gang. You can choose respect over fear. It starts with a single choice." Just then, a group of police officers rounded the corner, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The sound of their boots echoed off the alley walls, a clear signal that the situation was about to escalate. The lead biker's bravado slipped further, and he glanced at his gang, their faces a mix of defiance and worry. "We don't need this," he barked, but there was a hint of doubt in his voice. "You're right," Keanu said, seizing the moment. "You don't need this. Walk away while you still can." The gang's attention wavered as the police approached, their presence a stark reminder of the consequences of their actions. Keanu felt a surge of hope. The law could be their escape route, but only if they were willing to take it. The smaller biker took a step back, his face reflecting a struggle between loyalty to his gang and the desire to escape the escalating confrontation. "Maybe we should just go," he suggested, glancing nervously at the police. The lead biker shot him a furious look. "You're not going to let this guy talk you into backing down, are you?" But the uncertainty was growing. Keanu could see the tension unraveling. the gang's unity cracking under the weight of choice. The homeless man, still behind Keanu, watched in silence, hope flickering in his eyes. It's not about backing down. It's about choosing the right path, Keanu replied, stepping closer to the bikers. You can still choose to be better. Suddenly, the police officers reached the alley, their presence commanding immediate attention. What's going on here? One of them called out, assessing the scene. Keanu quickly raised his hands, signaling that he wasn't a threat. These men are just having a moment of realization, he said, glancing back at the gang. They have a choice to make. The lead biker clenched his jaw, his pride battling with the dawning realization that things were about to go very wrong for them. The sirens faded, but the reality of their situation was evident. The police officers moved closer, eyes narrowing as they took in the sight of the gang and the homeless man huddled behind Keanu. We received a report about a disturbance, one officer stated, his tone firm. You need to disperse. With the weight of authority pressing down on them, Keanu could see the gang members shifting uneasily. The lead biker glared at Keanu, but the fire in his eyes was dimming. This isn't over, the biker hissed, stepping back slightly. We'll be watching you. Keanu met his gaze, unwavering. You have the power to change. Don't waste it. With that, the lead biker turned to his gang, a mixture of frustration and defeat on his face. Let's go, he barked, and one by one, the gang members began to back away, their bravado dissipating as they retreated into the shadows. As they melted away, the homeless man let out a shaky breath, and Keanu turned to him, relief washing over him. Are you okay? The man nodded slowly, eyes glistening with gratitude. Thank you, he murmured, voice thick with emotion. I didn't think anyone would help me. Keanu smiled, the weight of the moment settling into something lighter. You're not alone. No one should have to face this by themselves. The police officers stepped forward, assessing the situation. Is everything all right here? One asked, looking between Keanu and the homeless man. It is now, Keanu replied, his voice steady. They chose to walk away. The officers nodded, and Keanu felt a wave of relief wash over him. But beneath that relief lay a sense of urgency, a recognition that the fight for dignity and compassion was ongoing. He couldn't help but think of all the others who faced similar struggles every day. As the officers began to disperse, Keanu turned back to the homeless man. What's your name? Joe, he replied, his voice a mix of shyness and gratitude. I don't have much, but I appreciate what you did. Keanu crouched down to meet Joe's gaze, sincerity etched on his face. You deserve respect, Joe. I want to help. Joe looked taken aback. Help me? How? Keanu felt a spark of determination. Let's get you some food and a warm place to stay. And if you're open to it, I can connect you with some resources. Joe's eyes widened, disbelief mixing with hope. You'd do that for me? Absolutely, Keanu affirmed. Everyone deserves a chance to start fresh. In that moment, Keanu realized that this wasn't just about one night. It was about changing lives, one small act of kindness at a time. He felt a renewed sense of purpose surging within him as he extended his hand to Joe. The journey ahead would be difficult, but it was a journey worth taking. And for Keanu, it was a chance to truly live out the values he held dear: compassion, empathy, and the belief that change is possible, even in the darkest of times. The evening air had grown colder, wrapping around Keanu and Joe like a thick blanket as they stepped out of the alley. The chaos of the confrontation lingered in the air, but now, a sense of possibility began to emerge. Keanu felt invigorated, ready to face the challenges ahead, and he could see that same flicker of hope in Joe's eyes. Where do we go now? Joe asked, glancing around as they walked along the sidewalk. The city buzzed with life, people rushing past, oblivious to the struggles that lay hidden beneath the surface. Keanu smiled warmly. There's a diner not far from here. They have great food, and we can talk about what you need. He wanted to create a safe space for Joe to share his story, to help him feel valued and seen. As they approached the diner, the neon lights flickered against the darkening sky, casting a warm glow that promised comfort. They stepped inside, the familiar sounds of clinking dishes and quiet chatter enveloping them. Keanu led Joe to a booth in the corner, settling into the plush seats. "What can I get you?" a waitress asked, her notepad poised and ready. Keanu glanced at Joe, who seemed uncertain. "How about a burger and fries?" he suggested, his voice encouraging. "You need something hearty." Joe nodded, his expression shifting to one of tentative excitement. "Yeah, that sounds good." Keanu placed their order, watching as Joe relaxed slightly, the tension from earlier fading. "So, Joe, tell me a bit about yourself. What's your story?" Joe looked down at the table, tracing the patterns in the wood with his finger. "It's a long one," he began, hesitating. "I lost my job a few years ago, and, well, things just spiraled from there. I never thought I'd end up on the streets." Keanu listened intently, the weight of Joe's words resonating with him. Life can be unpredictable. Sometimes it feels like everything is against you. He thought back to his own struggles, the times he had faced loss and uncertainty. Joe looked up, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. "I just don't know how to get back on my feet. I feel stuck." "You're not stuck," Keanu reassured him. "You took a huge step tonight by reaching out for help. That's the first step toward change." Just then, their food arrived, and Joe's eyes widened as he took in the steaming plate in front of him. "Wow, this looks amazing," he exclaimed, the smile spreading across his face like a warm light. Keanu chuckled, enjoying the moment. "Dig in. You deserve it." As Joe took his first bite, Keanu watched the tension slowly melt away, replaced by the joy of a simple meal. They ate in comfortable silence, the sounds of the diner creating a comforting backdrop. Once they finished, Keanu leaned back, feeling the weight of their conversation settling in. "Have you ever thought about what you'd like to do next?" he asked gently. Joe paused, considering the question. "I used to love working with my hands. I was a mechanic before everything fell apart." His eyes brightened for a moment. "I always found it satisfying to fix things." "That's great," Keanu replied, feeling a spark of inspiration. "There are organizations that help people like you get back into work. Would you be open to looking into some options?" Joe's expression shifted, uncertainty creeping back in. "Do you really think I could?" "Absolutely," Keanu affirmed. "You have skills, and more importantly, you have the drive. You just need a little support to get started." The conversation flowed easily after that, Keanu sharing stories from his own life and experiences while Joe opened up about his dreams and fears. They talked about everything: family, hobbies, and the little things that made life worth living. As the evening wore on, Keanu felt a sense of purpose solidifying within him. This wasn't just about one night. It was about creating a ripple effect that could change lives. "I want to help you connect with resources, Joe. Let's make a plan together." Joe looked overwhelmed, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Thank you. I never thought someone would care enough to help me like this." Keanu reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on Joe's. "You're not alone anymore. We all need someone to lean on sometimes." Just then, Keanu's phone buzzed, pulling him from the moment. He glanced at the screen and saw a text from his friend Sandra. "Hey, are you free to catch up? I heard about the alley incident. Just wanted to check in." He smiled at the concern in her message. "Sorry, I need to respond to a friend. Give me a second." He quickly typed back, assuring her he was fine, but that he'd explain later. As he put the phone down, he looked back at Joe, who was watching him curiously. "What was that about?" Joe asked. "Just a friend checking in," Keanu replied. "I want to share your story with her. I think she'd love to help too." Joe's eyes widened. "You do that?" "Of course," Keanu said. "We all need community, and I want to help you build yours." Joe nodded slowly, a sense of hope dawning in his expression. "I can't believe this is happening. It feels surreal." Keanu smiled, feeling the weight of their conversation transform into something lighter. "This is just the beginning, Joe. We're going to work together to make things happen." With renewed energy, they began mapping out a plan for Joe's future. They discussed job opportunities, potential training programs, and ways to connect with local organizations dedicated to helping those in need. As they spoke, Keanu realized that every word they shared was building a bridge, not just for Joe, but for himself as well. This experience was reinforcing his belief that compassion was a powerful force, capable of changing lives and fostering connection in a world that often felt disconnected. After finishing their meal, Keanu and Joe stepped outside into the crisp night air. The streets were buzzing with energy, and Keanu felt a sense of excitement thrumming in his veins. "So, what's next?" Joe asked, his eyes sparkling with newfound determination. "We start tomorrow," Keanu replied, grinning. "We'll visit some local organizations and see what resources are available. I'll be with you every step of the way." Joe's face lit up with gratitude. "I can't thank you enough for this." "No need for thanks," Keanu said, his heart swelling. "Just pay it forward when you can. That's how we create change." As they walked side by side, Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that they were both embarking on a new journey, a path toward healing and growth that would leave a lasting impact on their lives. It was a reminder that every act of kindness could ripple outwards, shaping a better world for all. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the city as Keanu and Joe prepared for their first day of exploring opportunities. Keanu had spent the night thinking about how best to support Joe, drafting a list of local organizations and job training programs that could help him rebuild his life. They met at the diner again, where Keanu ordered them both coffee and a hearty breakfast. As they sat down, Keanu could see a new confidence radiating from Joe. His eyes sparkled with anticipation, and for the first time in a long while, he looked hopeful. "Ready for today?" Keanu asked, grinning as he handed Joe his coffee. "More than ready," Joe replied, taking a sip. "I can't believe I'm actually doing this." After breakfast, they set out on foot, the city bustling with life. Keanu led the way, recounting stories about some of the organizations they were visiting. "There's a community center nearby that offers job training and resume workshops. I think it would be a good fit for you." Joe nodded, absorbing every word. "I've always been good with my hands, but I need help figuring out how to market that." "Exactly. They'll help you highlight your skills and find opportunities that suit you," Keanu reassured him. "Let's start with that." As they walked, they passed by various shops and parks, the vibrancy of the city wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. Joe seemed more animated, pointing out things he hadn't noticed before. "Look at that street artist. He's really talented." Keanu smiled, watching as Joe began to engage with the world around him. "You're noticing more. That's a great sign." They arrived at the community center, a modest building with colorful murals adorning the walls. As they entered, they were greeted by a warm atmosphere and friendly staff who were eager to help. "Welcome. How can we assist you today?" a receptionist asked with a bright smile. Keanu stepped forward. "This is Joe, and he's looking to get back into the workforce. We're hoping to find resources for job training." The receptionist nodded enthusiastically. "You've come to the right place. We offer several programs that can help you with job skills, resume writing, and interview preparation." Joe's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? That sounds amazing. Let's get you signed up for an orientation," the receptionist said, leading them to a desk. Keanu watched as Joe filled out the necessary paperwork, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. After signing up, they were given a brochure detailing upcoming workshops and programs. Keanu could see the hope returning to Joe's face, and he felt a rush of determination for what lay ahead. "What do you think?" Keanu asked, glancing at Joe. "I can't believe I'm finally doing this. It feels like a fresh start," Joe replied, his voice laced with disbelief. They spent the next hour going over the various programs, discussing what Joe was most interested in. Keanu encouraged him to consider a trade school for mechanics, emphasizing the stability and potential of that path. "You already have experience. Imagine how much you could achieve with some additional training," Keanu said, his excitement contagious. Joe's smile widened. "I never thought about going back to that. It always felt out of reach." "It's not out of reach," Keanu affirmed. "You just need the right support." After leaving the community center, they headed to a nearby workshop that specialized in resume writing and interview skills. As they entered, they were welcomed by a kind woman who introduced herself as Angela. "We're glad to have you both here. What can I help you with today?" she asked warmly. Joe stepped forward, a little shy but clearly eager. I'm looking to get my resume in shape and prepare for job interviews. You're in the right place, Angela replied. Let's get started. The workshop was interactive, with participants sharing their experiences and challenges. Joe listened intently, taking notes and asking questions. Keanu watched, proud of how engaged Joe was becoming. I never realized how important a good resume is, Joe remarked during a break. I always thought it was just a formality. It's your first impression. You want it to stand out, Keanu replied. And you have a lot to offer. As the workshop wrapped up, Angela encouraged everyone to practice their interview skills with one another. Keanu felt a mix of excitement and nerves for Joe as he prepared to take the stage. You got this, Joe, he said, offering a reassuring smile. Joe took a deep breath and approached another participant for a mock interview. Keanu watched as Joe stumbled at first, but gradually gained confidence. By the end of the practice, he was smiling, and Keanu could see a flicker of the man he used to be, the mechanic who took pride in his work. That was great, Keanu exclaimed when Joe returned. You handled that like a pro? Joe laughed, a genuine sound that warmed Keanu's heart. I didn't think I could do that, but it felt good. As they left the workshop, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the city. They walked side by side, Joe animatedly recounting what he had learned. I can't believe how much I'm learning in just one day, Joe said, his excitement infectious. And this is just the beginning, Keanu replied. Imagine what you can accomplish in a few weeks. As they continued walking, Joe suddenly stopped, looking out at the city skyline. You know, I never thought I could have a future. I was just trying to survive day by day. Keanu stopped beside him, taking in the view as well. I get it. Sometimes, it's hard to see beyond the struggle. But now you're taking control. You're creating a future for yourself. Joe turned to Keanu, gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you for believing in me. I didn't think anyone would care enough to help. Keanu smiled warmly. It's my pleasure, Joe. Everyone deserves a chance to find their way back. As they headed home, Keanu felt a sense of fulfillment washing over him. He had not only helped Joe take his first steps toward a new beginning, but he had also discovered the transformative power of connection and kindness. And as the city lights flickered on around them, Keanu knew that this journey was just as important for him as it was for Joe. Together, they were beginning to rewrite their stories, one step at a time. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity and newfound hope for Joe. With Keanu's unwavering support, he enrolled in a local trade school focused on mechanics, diving headfirst into classes that reignited his passion. Each day brought new challenges and learning opportunities, but more importantly, it brought a sense of purpose that had been missing from his life for far too long. One afternoon, as they were studying together in a cozy coffee shop, Joe leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. You know, I haven't thought much about my past in a while, but I think I need to face it to really move forward. Keanu looked up from his notes, intrigued. What do you mean? I've been so focused on this new chapter, but I can't ignore what got me here. I lost everything. My job, my home, my family, Joe admitted, his voice heavy with emotion. I think I need to find some closure. Keanu nodded, understanding the weight of what Joe was saying. That makes sense. It's important to acknowledge your past, but remember, it doesn't define you. You have the power to shape your future. Joe took a deep breath, the tension evident in his shoulders. I think I want to reach out to my family. It's been years since we last spoke. Keanu felt a pang of empathy for Joe. Family dynamics could be complicated, especially after such a long separation. Are you ready for that? He asked gently. Joe paused, contemplating. I don't know. Part of me is scared, but another part knows it's something I need to do. I want them to see who I've become. I'll be here for you. No matter what, Keanu promised, his support unwavering. We can take it one step at a time. That evening, they talked about how Joe could approach the situation. He crafted a heartfelt letter, pouring out his feelings, expressing his desire to reconnect, and acknowledging the pain of the past. Keanu encouraged him to be honest but gentle, reminding him that vulnerability was a strength. After finishing the letter, Joe hesitated, holding the envelope tightly. What if they don't respond? he wondered aloud, anxiety creeping into his voice. Then you'll know you tried, Keanu replied. And if they do respond, it could lead to something beautiful. With a deep breath, Joe finally mailed the letter, his heart racing as he dropped it into the mailbox. It felt like a weight had been lifted, yet the uncertainty lingered in the air. The following days were a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Keanu continued to support Joe through his classes, celebrating his small victories and encouraging him when the going got tough. But beneath the surface, Joe remained on edge, constantly checking his phone for any signs of a response. One evening, as they were reviewing material for an upcoming exam, Joe's phone buzzed on the table. Both of them froze, their eyes wide. "Is it them?" Keanu asked, his heart racing. Joe reached for his phone, trembling slightly. He opened the message, his breath hitching in his throat as he read the words. "Hey Joe, we received your letter. Can we talk? We miss you." "Oh my God," Joe breathed, his face a mixture of shock and elation. "They want to talk." Keanu felt a rush of excitement for Joe. "That's amazing. How do you feel?" "I'm terrified," Joe admitted, his voice shaking. "What do I even say?" "Just be honest," Keanu replied, his tone steady. "Tell them how you've been, how you're working to build a better life. Show them the new you." Joe nodded, taking a deep breath to calm his racing heart. "You're right. I just need to be myself." After a few back-and-forth messages, they set up a time to meet at a park. The day of the meeting arrived, and the morning sun bathed the city in warmth. Keanu and Joe took the bus together, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. As they approached the park, Joe's hands trembled slightly. "What if they're disappointed in me?" he whispered. "They won't be. You've overcome so much, and you're doing incredible things now," Keanu reassured him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Just remember, this is about connection, not perfection." They found a bench near the entrance, and Joe sat down, glancing around nervously. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for his family to arrive. When they finally spotted them, a couple in their 50s, looking apprehensive but hopeful, Joe's breath caught in his throat. He felt a mix of emotions wash over him: fear, excitement, and a glimmer of hope. His parents approached cautiously, their expressions a mixture of relief and concern. Joe stood up, and as their eyes locked, he felt a wave of emotion crash over him. "Mom? Dad?" he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. His mother stepped forward, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Joe, we missed you so much." Before he could think, Joe found himself enveloped in her embrace, the warmth of her hug igniting memories he had buried deep within himself. His father joined in, wrapping his arms around them both, and for a moment, it felt like a piece of the past had been restored. As they pulled away, Joe wiped his eyes, feeling overwhelmed but grounded. "I've missed you too. I'm sorry for everything that happened." His father nodded slowly, the lines on his face deepening with emotion. "We've thought about you every day. We just want you to be happy." They spent the next few hours talking, sharing stories, and catching up on lost time. Joe told them about his journey, the struggles he faced, and how he was working to rebuild his life. "I'm learning to be a mechanic again," he shared with a spark in his eyes. "It's what I love to do." His mother smiled, pride blooming in her expression. "That's wonderful, Joe. We always believed in your talent." As the sun began to set, the shadows lengthening across the park, Joe felt a sense of closure settling in. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer held the same power over him. "I want us to keep talking, to build our relationship again," Joe said earnestly. "I know it'll take time, but I'm ready." His parents nodded, their faces reflecting a mix of hope and determination. "We are too, Joe," his father replied. "We've missed you, and we're here for you now." As they parted ways that evening, Joe felt lighter, a newfound sense of freedom washing over him. He glanced at Keanu, who had been quietly supportive throughout the reunion. "Thank you for encouraging me to reach out," Joe said, gratitude flooding his voice. "I don't know if I could have done it without you." "You did all the hard work, Joe," Keanu replied with a warm smile. "I'm just glad I could be here for you." In that moment, Joe realized that he wasn't just rebuilding his life. He was also redefining what it meant to have a family and a support system. With each step forward, he was learning to embrace both the challenges and the beauty of the journey ahead. The weeks that followed Joe's reunion with his family were filled with both challenges and triumphs. As he immersed himself in his studies at the trade school, the support from his parents helped solidify his resolve. They began meeting regularly, sharing meals, stories, and laughter, building a bridge they thought had been irreparably damaged. One afternoon, Keanu and Joe were sitting in their usual coffee shop, going over the latest assignments. Joe had a spark in his eye, and Keanu could sense the excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. "I have some news," Joe exclaimed, setting down his coffee. "I landed an internship at a local garage." Keanu's face lit up with joy. "That's incredible, Joe. Congratulations." He could hardly contain his enthusiasm as he leaned across the table. "This is a huge step forward for you." Joe's grin was infectious. "I'm so pumped. It's part-time for now, but it's a foot in the door. They said if I do well, there's a chance for a full-time position." "You'll do great," Keanu said, genuinely believing in Joe's potential. "You've worked so hard to get here." With the internship starting soon, Joe found himself both excited and nervous. "What if I mess up?" he asked, a hint of anxiety creeping back in. "Everyone starts somewhere," Keanu reassured him. "Just focus on learning and being yourself. You're going to shine." As the days passed, Joe threw himself into preparing for his new role. Keanu continued to be a steady presence, helping him practice interview questions and offering insights from his own experiences in the film industry. It became clear that their friendship had evolved into a powerful bond, one that transcended their individual struggles. Finally, the day of the internship arrived. Joe woke up early, his heart racing with anticipation. He dressed carefully, putting on his best shirt and jeans, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. After a quick breakfast, he set out, determined to make a strong impression. The garage was bustling with activity when Joe arrived. Mechanics were busy working on cars, the sounds of tools clanking and engines revving filling the air. He took a deep breath, feeling both exhilarated and intimidated. His supervisor, a seasoned mechanic named Mike, greeted him with a firm handshake. "Glad to have you on board, Joe. Let's get you settled." Throughout the day, Joe shadowed Mike, absorbing as much as he could. He watched as Mike diagnosed problems, shared tips on repairs, and interacted with customers. Every moment felt like a lesson, and Joe soaked it all in. During a break, Joe couldn't help but smile as he reflected on how far he had come. Just a few months ago, he had been lost, feeling hopeless and disconnected. Now, he was in a place he had always dreamed of being. As the weeks went by, Joe's confidence grew. He learned to communicate effectively with customers and handled minor repairs with increasing skill. Mike praised his progress, and Joe felt a renewed sense of purpose with each passing day. Outside of work, Joe continued to nurture his relationship with his parents. They attended his trade school graduation, cheering him on as he received his certificate. It was a moment filled with pride, not just for Joe but for his family as well. They had all worked hard to rebuild their bonds, and this was a significant milestone in that journey. One evening, as they celebrated at a local restaurant, Joe looked around the table at his family and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I wouldn't be here without your support," he said sincerely. "Thank you for believing in me." His mother reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "You've done all the hard work, Joe. We're just proud to be part of your journey." As the months turned into a year, Joe's internship turned into a full-time position. He felt invigorated by the challenges of his work, and with Keanu by his side, he continued to grow both personally and professionally. One day after work, Keanu invited Joe to a film screening he was hosting at a local community center. "It'll be a great way to see some inspiring stories," he said, excitement dancing in his eyes. When they arrived, Joe was amazed by the turnout. The room was filled with people from different walks of life, all gathered to celebrate creativity and resilience. As the film played, Joe found himself captivated by the stories on screen, many of which mirrored his own journey of struggle and redemption. After the screening, Keanu stood in front of the audience, sharing his experiences and the importance of community support. "It's about finding strength in each other and lifting one another up," he said, his voice strong and resonant. We all have the power to change lives, and it starts with compassion. As Keanu spoke, Joe felt a sense of pride wash over him. He realized how far he had come, not just in his career but in his relationships too. His journey was a testament to the strength of human connection and the impact of kindness. After the event, Joe approached Keanu, feeling grateful. "You've really changed my life, you know," he said earnestly. "I'm not sure I would have gotten here without you." Keanu smiled warmly. "And you've changed mine, Joe. It's been incredible to witness your growth. You've shown that resilience and determination can lead to amazing things." As they walked out into the cool night air, Joe felt a profound sense of peace. He had faced his past, embraced his present, and was excited for the future. With his family supporting him and a newfound sense of purpose in his work, he was ready to embrace whatever came next. "What's our next adventure?" Joe asked playfully. "Let's keep pushing boundaries," Keanu replied with a grin. "Who knows what opportunities lie ahead?" With laughter echoing in the night, they stepped into the future, side by side, ready to tackle whatever life had in store. Joe knew that no matter the challenges, he wouldn't face them alone. Together, they had forged a bond that could weather any storm, and with that knowledge, the possibilities felt endless.